Well, hi there, pluckers. Ivor Sorefingers with you for something slightly different today. It's in response to various requests I've had recently for people asking me if I could do a video on my musical background and my guitar playing, how I've progressed in my guitar life, so to speak. Okay, so I thought I'd just make a potted history of Ivor Sorefingers' musical background. Okay, so just to give you some very quick background on myself, I am currently 72 years old. I was born in North Wales in the UK, but I didn't live there very long. I think I moved away when I was probably about 2 years old. Hence I haven't got a Welsh accent, and my father had a job where he moved around the country quite a bit, so I haven't got a distinct accent for any particular part of the UK. Currently I am obviously retired and I'm now on the south coast of the UK. Okay, so where did it all start? Well, I think my first guitar was bought for me when I was about 12 years old. Around the early 60s, okay, and in those days, if you wanted to buy a guitar of any description, you really had to live near a big town or city. All the music shops in the provinces were generally, they sold pianos and accordions and trumpets and stuff like woodwind instruments and stuff like that, violins. If you wanted a guitar, you had to live near a city in those early 60s times. Okay, so anyway, so obviously I must have shown some interest in playing the guitar for some reason. Obviously the Beatles were kicking off at that time and all the other 60s bands, and so my parents bought me an acoustic guitar, 6-string steel-strung acoustic guitar, by mail order. Okay, and there was a company in the UK called Bell's Musical Instruments, and they were based in Surbiton, which is just outside London. Okay, and they used to sell, obviously all the conventional musical instruments as well, but they also had a department specialising in guitars and guitar amplifiers and all the things that people were starting to use in the early 60s to play the music of the day. Yeah. Anyway, so they sent for this catalogue, and from that catalogue they bought me this acoustic guitar, right, mail order. I believe I read somewhere that Eric Clapton bought his first guitar at Bell's Musical Instruments as well. Unfortunately, he went on to better things. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, I was about 12, and I think they bought me some books, tuition books to go with it. I think I had the infamous Clay in a Day from Burt Weedon, amongst others, and some chord books and how to play some simple folk songs and stuff like that. And I persevered with that for a couple of years, I think, and I was obviously had the very, very, very sore fingers, like you do normally get when you start learning on steel string guitars. Very painful at times. Anyway, so I persevered for a couple of years, and I started playing a few simple things, the chords, C, F and G, or trying to play the F anyway. But there was no one around me that actually played, so it was a sort of lonely existence for a couple of years. Okay. And then my father, who was attached to a department in the government, he got a posting to Hong Kong for the 3 years. So we packed our bags and we moved to Hong Kong for 3 years. That would have been when I was about 14. And we obviously in Hong Kong was a British colony at the time, and there was quite a large army base there and what have you. And I used to go to an army school, an army secondary modern school, and during that time I met quite a few other kids that also were interested in playing guitar, and we got involved in little after school guitar clubs. And we had a music teacher who was quite pro the guitar, and he used to stay behind at the end of the day and at school and give us guitar lessons as such. Yeah, so that was the next step up the ladder sort of thing. And obviously the 60s music was in full swing at that time. So that's how I stayed at that. And we used to do, towards the end of my 3 years stint, I would have getting to sort of 15, 16, 17 and that sort of thing. We started playing in youth clubs and stuff together, trying to do the songs of the day rather badly. But we managed to get a small band together. Someone would play bass and someone, cut the guitars, and we actually managed to find somebody that was trying to learn to play drums, so that was quite good. And that's how it stayed until I was about 17, and then I came home, or my parents came back to the UK, to Winchester in Hampshire, where he was going to get his next posting. And they obviously had to find a house to live in, so we were in a guest house living in a guest house for about 3 months whilst they were trying to find a house to live in. And just so happens that living in this guest house was a guy who played guitar, and he was an ex-band player, serious pro band player, and he had one of these really big, acoustic guitar, semi-acoustic guitars. I think it was electrified as well, I think it was, if I remember rightly. And he was obviously into band music and standards of the day, And I told him I played, and he said, "Oh, well, we ought to get together," sort of thing. And I spent quite a lot of time with him in the evenings when he finished work and he came back to the guest house, and he'd get his guitar out and show me chords and things which I'd never even heard of. And he was into all that, sort of all these inside chords and stuff, and all these ninths and stuff which I've never even heard of. I've seen in a book. All those sort of chords, and major sevenths and bossa nova. All those sort of bossa nova type chords, and he taught me a load of this stuff, and that's where I really got into playing chords, and that's where my love of chords comes from. It's from him. He showed me a new avenue of playing. Anyway, so obviously we eventually moved out, and I got a job. I was 17, I think I was 17 and a half, 18, and I became an apprentice TV engineer, funny enough. I got an apprenticeship at a TV company doing maintenance and repair on TVs, and I got to go to day release college and all that sort of thing through them. Anyway, where I worked is in Winchester in Hampshire, and the workshop where this company were based, there was probably quite a few guys there, about probably 10 or 15 people used to work in this workshop, and 2 of them played in bands, but they were a trumpet player and a saxophonist. Okay, but they were actually band in the evenings during the weekend. They were out playing, doing sort of working men's clubs and that sort of thing, pubs, and they were doing mainly standards, but some modern 60s stuff as well. Anyway, they got to know that I played, and they turned around to me one day and said that their guitarist had got long-term sickness and was going to be off for like 6 months or something with some problem, and would I like to audition for standing in for 6 months? So of course all I'd done was like youth clubs and stuff. Anyway, so they said, can you read music? And I said, well, I can read chord symbols. So he said, okay, we'll give you a load of sheet music which has got chord symbols on it, and if you could learn 30 songs, we'll give you 30 songs to learn, and you've got a couple of weeks to learn them if you fancy it. So anyway, so they threw me down. I went to see them one night, and they gave me a couple of sheets of music and said, can you read that? I said, yeah. So they said, okay, show us what you can do. We'll play along with you, and we'll see how good you are. So I played this, I can't remember what they were, some standards like, Fly Me to the Moon or something or other, Blue Moon and all that sort of thing. And they gave me the sheet music, and I played through it, and they said, yeah, you'll do. So they gave me a whole folder of music, about 50 or 60 bits of music, and said, work your way through that. And you've got 2 weeks, and then we got some gigs coming up, and that's how it started for me. So I went out with them for 6 months basically, while this guy was off sick, playing social clubs and pubs, and I actually got paid, which was amazing. It was and I got ferried about, because I wasn't driving it then. I didn't have a car or anything, so they used to pick me up, take me home, and that's how I started. So I played with them for 6 months, and then the guy came back, who was obviously their guitarist, and so I started looking around, and I answered an advert in a paper, local paper, some pop band doing current stuff was advertising for a rhythm guitarist, and now that's where, so in those days most bands didn't have a luxury of a keyboard player. It was 2 guitars, bass and drums, and excuse me, I'm being interlooped, come on, off you go, come on. So I answered the advert and went for an audition, shall I say, and I got the job, and they were obviously doing music of the day, Kinks, Small Faces and all those sort of people, Beatles obviously, and I got a job, I got the job with them, and that was my second band, and I was playing rhythm. They had a separate lead guitarist, and I stayed with them for I think a couple of years. And then I just progressed, for one reason or another. I think the band broke up, and I found another band, and so on. And I gradually worked up through several bands into sort of better paid jobs, doing function work, like army bases and navy bases and all that sort of thing, weddings obviously, and corporate dues, dinner dances, all that sort of thing. I gradually worked up different bands until we got into quite some well-paid semi-professional work. Okay, and that's basically how it's stayed until probably into the 80s, when keyboards got more common, and you didn't normally have 2 guitarists. Obviously you had a bass guitar, but there wasn't a rhythm and a lead guitarist. It was basically one guitarist, because there was a keyboard player. Synthesizers and all this sort of thing were hitting the scene, yeah. Keyboards became quite prominent in the music. So I was basically rhythm and lead, and that's how it stayed basically until I retired. Okay, there was always keyboards and one guitarist and a bass. So it was a case of playing both rhythm and lead, although obviously my personal preference is rhythm. I do play lead under sufferance, but the rhythm is where I'm at, and chords, love chords. Okay, so that's it, boys and girls. I mean, most of my life, playing-wise, has been on the south coast. Did get a chance to go pro when I was about 22 or 23, but by that time, some of the band I was in was offered some pro work, so doing cruise liners and stuff, and but unfortunately at that time, some of the band, was starting to, their careers were taking off, and they just got married, and one of them had a baby, and you know how it is. So there was, some of the band didn't want to do it, so we didn't, and I didn't, so never went pro. And so I stayed semi-pro until I retired from playing, which was, I think I was about 57 when I stopped playing, gigging, shall I say. But during those 30 years or so I was doing semi-pro work, I played most of the main venues along between sort of along the south coast, Southampton, Portsmouth, Brighton, Bournemouth, all the way down, and up north, slightly up north. I played London a few times, not many, half a dozen times, to some of the large hotels in London, but all round Reading and all round all those sort of places. So I went to, some of the places were quite, shall we say, famous, if you like. Some hotels, some of the bigger hotels in London. I think my biggest claim to fame was I actually played on the Britannia, which was obviously the Queen no longer has a ship or a yacht, a royal yacht, but I played on her royal yacht Britannia. Only once, but that's probably my claim to fame. I played on the Royal Yacht Britannia for a reception on there once with my band at the time. Yes, so that's it really. I can't really say any more. I don't know. There's not much to say other than that. The only thing, when I retired, I suppose the thing that came out of my retirement was the 99% of my time playing guitar before I retired was electric. Okay, very rarely played acoustic at all. But when I retired, I basically stopped playing electric and played acoustic. I taught myself a little bit of finger picking and concentrated on acoustic stuff, okay, or tried to convert stuff to acoustic guitar. And I met a chap through my last job that before I retired I was doing medical electronics in a local hospital, doing all the monitoring equipment repairing of, and in the maintenance department I met a gentleman called Malcolm, and we got very close friendship, and he played guitar, and he wanted me to help him play better, shall we say, improve his playing, which I tried to do, and I still am. And we used to get together quite a bit, and I used to show him things, and I thought, we used to meet up every so often, but I thought it would be quite useful if he had some sort of video reference to go back to, so he could be learning all the time rather than just when we met up. So I used to make him lessons, and I used to, as a convenient place to put them, I put them on YouTube, and he used to go onto YouTube and watch them and carry on with his practice, right? And then I think somebody said to me, well, why don't, some of them are quite good, why don't you put them out to the general public? And that's how Ivor Sorefingers kicked off. Okay, I put a couple up. This is going back about 4.5 years ago, I think it was. And I put a few up, and people started asking for more and requesting songs and stuff. And here we are 4.5 years later, and I've got nearly 2,000 lessons online. Some of the early ones are a little bit ropey, but I think they've got better, hopefully. Having done 2,000 of them, they should have done. I mean, I've kept it simple. I'm not into fancy graphics and all that sort of stuff. They're just me and my guitar, and what you hear is what I'm playing. There's no effects, no after production or anything. It's very, very simple. And I try to play songs or teach songs that hopefully people want to learn to play. My musical, like I say, as you can tell from my background, my musical technical knowledge is very, very limited. I don't practice scales. I don't read, although I read music, I can read music very, very slowly. Chord symbols, no problem, but dots, a bit slow. I can read it, but limited speed. So I'm not a technical tutor. I don't do technical tutorials. It's just how to play a song. And as for, unfortunately, as I said, when I first started, obviously I was building up my repertoire, and people would request things that they would like to learn, and so that's how I started. But obviously, as time grew on and I got more people watching me, it got to a point where the requests coming in were ridiculous. I mean, it was like 100 requests a week. And it just got crazy. So hence, I'm afraid, 2 or 3 years ago, I had, I think it was about 2.5 years ago, I had to pull the plug on doing requests. So I don't take requests anymore. So that's why if you request anything, I'm afraid. I mean, if you put it on, if you do happen to request it, I ask you not to. But some people aren't aware of the fact that I don't do requests, and I still get the odd one come through. I mean, I will look at it and think, oh yeah, that might be a good number, and I put it on the list. But I don't take requests as such. If somebody puts one in front of me and I think, oh yeah, that might be a good number, I might put it on my list of things to do. But I don't take requests per se, okay? So just to let you know, that's not, although I used to when I first started, because it was useful. But at the moment, no way. So thanks very much for watching, and maybe you've carried, hopefully you may have got to the end without switching off. If I do, thank you very much, and God bless you. So thanks very much. I'll see you in the next, hopefully, lesson. Bye for now.